People, Deluded, I'm back again. Please excuse the crossed up shirt. I'm about to go do a workout outside and I thought, you know what, before I do it, let me make some content. I think I've been slacking in the last couple of days and getting a bit complacent. Now, let's do exactly that. I think my battery's low. I've done another video, so I'm kind of racing against time. But let's crack on. I'm sure a lot of you have seen some articles or snippets from The Athletic in that it's what Arsenal fans can assume we know already, in that, you know, we're trying to sell Mustafi, Aubameyang situation, the fact Maitland-Niles has fallen out of favour, Guendouzi could be sold or could be used next season. A couple of these things in that when they're isolated and you take couple 3-4 paragraphs, it looks like it's urgent new developing news, when it's to a degree more of what we knew. And the article that's getting a lot of attention in The Athletic, for me, it's more of the same old, because even the context was around how Arteta is going to build his team for next year, and he looked at these players and how he'd make funds and if they fit in or not. It wasn't actually saying this is what we're hearing indirectly. And what did I tell you lot, people? I told you lot the battery was low. I should have let it charge, but I think it's charged to a decent amount now, so apologies for that. But like I was saying in relation to The Athletic and the articles, you might as well just let me go on. Centre back is the most bloated position in the squad, but with David Luiz, Socrates and Mustafi all entering the final years of their contracts, it might be easy to shift one of them for a cut price fee. Mustafi is the youngest of the three at 28, so technically should be able to command the highest fee, especially after a recent resurgence under Arteta. It might be expendant, I can't say that, to sell the German international while they could still recoup some cash. And it's going to be an interesting one, because you've heard David Luiz, for example, is in talk to get a new deal based off this season, rightly so, you know, an extension till 2022. We hear he's got contract coaching ambitions and he might pursue that at Arsenal. That's just my thoughts, I'm not saying that. And you hear he's a big influence with the young players. He's also come out, I haven't got it to hand, but he spoke of wanting to play for Benfica again. Now, wanting to and actually doing it is two different things, but you'd imagine within the next 2 years he has to make up his decision to do that, or he might, you know, put in his service at Arsenal, go back to them, call it a day. And I don't know if he wants to play back in his homeland of Brazil, but it makes sense. You know, Luiz is clearly going to stay because he's played well and he's given a new deal, and I believe, like Xhaka, he's a big voice off the field as well. He's one of them, and I think we don't see the work Luiz does because we're not in that environment. Mustafi, you know, he could be, if you've heard Arsenal want to bring in a centre-half, I believe we do need to, but if the market climate proves too difficult, then we might concede, we might leave, we might keep Mustafi here. Obviously, Mustafi's 28, he's got a family, you know, I'd imagine he wants to go to a club, if it's not going to be here, where, you know, the next couple of years, at least 3 years minimum, there's a bit of stability. That might be going back to Spain, that might be going to Italy. He's actually not played in the Bundesliga, forgive me if I'm wrong, people. I saw that stat on Twitter, I don't know if it's true. He might want to go and actually play there. And to play devil's advocate, there's probably never been a better time to sell Mustafi. He's finally looked like the defender we thought he was going to be at Valencia. I don't think Mustafi's a terrible player. Yes, he's made some clangers of mistakes and stuff like that. But during his time at Arsenal, he has had some good games. It's not like today he's rubbish, next day he's rubbish. Obviously, it's more spread out and highlighted. Long story short, he's not been the man. We might keep him, run down his deal. He might stay and think, you know what, I look like a different defender. Arteta's believing in me. If I keep this up, I might be able to earn a new deal at Arsenal. Which, you know, there'd be twos and froms. You know, Socrates will probably be the one to move on. You'd imagine 2 of the 3 are moved on. A decision will have to be made on Holding. Does he stay? Does he go? I think Arteta likes him and will use him, but he needs to play significant football next year. That might be done here. It might be leaving permanently. It might be on loan. Obviously, with Callum Chambers, I think in terms of performance, he was one of our best defenders this season, if not the best defender, prior to Mustafi's resurgence. And obviously, Luiz, we don't know how he's going to come back and what's going to be done. But I think he's afforded another stay. Mavropanos played yesterday. Well, yeah, he played yesterday. I didn't watch the game, but he played and had a good game from what you see online and what you're told. Probably needs to go out on loan again. He might get a chance. To be fair, when I speak to these academy players, they say my man's a beast, you know. So, you know, it might be one of them ones, there's more to show. But when you look at Mavropanos, he is a bit raw. He does need to be exposed to consistent first-team football as well as staying safe from injuries and stuff. So, you know, when it's put like that, it doesn't mean... You see, this is what I mean about it. When you isolate and read the article, it doesn't mean anything's going to happen. Went on to speak about Luiz is the best passer and stuff like that. Went on to talk about Holding's got 3 years left on his deal. It obviously went on to talk about Mavropanos and Saliba. There's no point. At right back, Maitland-Niles has fallen out of contention and is likely to move this summer, leaving just Bellerin and Chambers. Chambers had a decent season back at his parent club after his year on loan to now relegated Fulham, but is now sidelined with a long-term knee injury. Bellerin, meanwhile, has been working hard throughout the lockdown to return to fitness after his own major knee injury last season. Chambers sees himself as more of a centre-half than right-back, but given Arteta's tendency to play with a deep, narrow fullback on the right, he could potentially be a fit. And they've also said Cedric's Southampton contract expires this summer, so given the lack of resources, he could be a vulnerable pickup to provide cover as long as he can stay fit. So yeah, it's about staying fit. I think we've like Marie and Suarez. Marie's a bit different, but they've been brought in to kind of prove they're here permanently. Personally, I think Marie's signing is all permanent and all but name, but I don't know that. For Suarez, I do think his agent's helping out a mate, but he's been given an opportunity to prove he can be fit. I mean, say he's got something to say in terms of fitness and providing some sort of cover or locking down that right back space, then maybe a resurgent Bellerin, because Arteta's going to count upon him. Another one you hear is a big man off the field and off it, and carries himself as a captain and a leader. Might not be everyone's sort, but he does. Obviously, you'd obviously have him. You'd have Suarez, you'd have Bellerin, Chambers, I guess, at a push could be thrown there. So you'd have cover there. For Maitland-Niles, of course, Maitland, if he doesn't see himself as a right back and he wants to move on, we can't begrudge him for that. You know, if we can get 15, 20 million, is what it is. I still think there's a player in there for Arsenal. Arteta does as well, but he keeps speaking about his application in training. And I don't want to be harsh on the man, but, you know, you've got an opportunity at a lifetime. Look at Saka. You've heard today, Saka and the club see him as playing further forward, but you wouldn't know that just playing left back. He always says, I want to play further forward, but he understands it's game time. He understands that he might have to play left back to play football. He might be called upon there in the future. Things he's learning at left back, because he's not a perfect left back. If we're honest, he's not really test defensively like that, or he has had to defend, but not really been, you know, it's a game they're consistently out of sort of thing. But them skills there, he's going to learn. It's going to learn and give him a bit more insight into becoming an all-rounded footballer when he goes back to his position. So there is no excuse, Maitland-Niles. I love Maitland-Niles, but when I hear Arteta coming out and talking about application, I know you don't want to play right back. If you don't feel confident there, you don't. But like it said in the article, Like it said in the article, people, we play a narrow one, which you basically become a midfielder. You've seen Maitland-Niles himself at right back under Arteta do that when he was playing. So that's something for you. Obviously, like Saka, play your games in that position. You can have a word once you certify yourself and you show what. Yeah, you can have a word and say, oh, Arteta, give me a chance in midfield, man. I beg you, give me a chance in midfield. It is what it is. For me, I think I don't know who agrees with me, but I think Maitland-Niles should be given a chance in midfield, but I can't disagree with when I'm hearing certain things. I also think right back is an opportunity for him to lock down, because I think it's, you know, a fully fit Bellerin, if Bellerin looks like when he first burst on the scene, it might be different. But I think Maitland-Niles, when he's there, it's levels. I think, you know, he's got a good engine, can get up and down the field. You know, his concentration needs to improve. I actually think he's better in the final third than Bellerin. But if he doesn't, you know, listen, we've got to be harsh to be kind now. We can't keep pulling man along that are not giving what we need them to give. I'm not saying Maitland's doing that, but we can't keep man down on this. And, you know, we can't keep holding man's hand. We've got to be cruel to be kind. If we can get a 20 million and a future sell-on fee for Maitland-Niles, maybe even a buyback clause, it's cool. You know, he might even go out on loan, because recently he signed a new deal. Didn't he sign a new deal when Emery came? So, you know, we've got to get top dollar for these sort of man there. It spoke about the need for a utility defender and gave praise to Monreal, but also kind of likened that to, what's his name? Callum Chambers, and Callum Chambers is a utility man of sorts. It also says Xhaka seems to have committed his long-term future to the club, saying he and Arteta share a vision for that sixth role. Torreira has never quite seemed settled in 2 years in London, but the global economic crisis means there might not be too many buyers for the Uruguayan, who still has some way to go on his contract. So you've heard him muted as a possible swap option. He's always linked with AC Milan. He's another one. I love Torreira. Torreira's one of them. I know Xhaka is for Arteta, but Torreira's one that will play every game for me. If he doesn't want to be here like Maitland-Niles, for different reasons, for whatever reason, if you're not 100% committed, as a fan, just based on what I'm reading, please keep it moving, because listen, I love Torreira, I love Maitland-Niles, I love Aubameyang. I'm not saying Aubameyang's like that, but if Aubameyang doesn't want to be here, move on. Of course, it would make the squad weaker, but I'd rather players with less ability that just want to be here and can give 100% to the club, 100% to the fans, 100% to Arteta. And I'm not saying, I don't think any of the players are not giving that, but I just want men that are committed to the cause. You know, if you're not with it, no matter how good or how poor you are, thank you for your time at Arsenal, but keep it moving, because we're not going to get to where we need to be overnight. It's going to be a long turnaround, and the minimum Arteta deserves, and we as fans deserve, is a squad of 26, 11 starting players that are down for this cause. So it is what it is in that regard. I mean, I love Torreira, but if he hasn't settled for whatever reason, then you've got to keep it moving. Also spoke on the decisions with Danny. Well, I'm not going to read that out, but it spoke on Maitland-Niles Guendouzi and Joe Willock. It said Joe Willock might go on loan, and loan option might be good for him. I'm not too sure. I think a lot depends on what we might do with Emil Smith-Rowe, what we plan to do with Ozil, and maybe even Mkhitaryan. I do think Joe, it would be a benefit, like him, like Maitland-Niles, him holding a couple of the young, maybe even Nelson, even though I think Nelson's going to stay and be that pet project of Arteta. Go out on loan where you can play first team football. I think Joe, I don't think the 10 role's him. I think he's a pivot, but I think away from that, what he can learn in his role, if he's going to play as a 10, I think sometimes he needs to take up better positions on the ball. I think his decision making obviously needs to improve, and things like that. So he might go on loan because he's a squad player at the moment, you know. If he earns a spot, he'll play. Arteta's shown that, but it might be worth it. I think Joe Willock stays, but you never know what happens. If Partey comes in and another centre mid, things could change. Definitely if Ceballos moves back to Real Madrid, which we all anticipate, I don't think Joe goes on loan. I think Emil will probably go on loan again. I hope to see him get a chance, but that might be it. Apparently Ceballos has a 40 million price tag, which at this moment in time for Arsenal is probably too much money, so there'll be things to... There'll be other things. I mean, if we could get him on loan again, it could be decent considering how it's been for Ceballos of late in the side, getting a resurgence in, getting a look in the side and all of these sort of things. But we'll have to see. It spoke about Guendouzi, and it said Guendouzi has had some great performances in the last couple of seasons and has shown a maturity on the pitch beyond his years. That said, he had discipline issues this season, and he's a potential candidate to be sold to raise money for improving other areas of the side. That's all it said. So again, it's just somebody's opinion. It's not really a thingy. Specifics, people, really and truly. And like I said in the article, it said Saka and the club see his future in a more advanced role. Moving to some other transfer news, people. According to reports in France, both Everton and Arsenal are interested in signing St Etienne centre half Fofana, who is another young 19-year-old. I think he's technically older than Saliba, which is praise to Saliba. And I think Fofana is a decent defender. He's been, obviously, he'll have a lot to learn. I personally think it would be best for him to stay at St Etienne, where he can develop and play. You look at Camara. Camara probably could have left Marseille time ago, but he's playing games. Yes, Camara's had some tough periods playing in midfield as well as in defence, but you're playing games. I think it'll be, at least for another season, it might be worth it for Fofana staying. For us, it would be perfect because I think he's someone like Saliba. They've had a good partnership. He's fairly strong. He doesn't have the biggest and most composing of figures, at least on the TV, but he tracks well, he defends well, he's an honest defender, he's got consistency, he's decent in the air. Of course, there's many rough edges around his game, but I would take him. He's another young man with potential resale value, but for what it's worth, I think it's worth him staying at St Etienne. And obviously the bulk of these rumours probably came because we've obviously signed Saliba, so we probably have a report on Fofana, and I'd imagine there's an Arsenal scout who's been at every one or the majority of Saliba's St Etienne games, even when he confirmed signing for Arsenal, for progress reports and stuff. So naturally, if that's there, they must have said something about Fofana, or you can see why a newspaper would invent such if it's not true. I like him, I would take him, but I don't think it's true. I ain't seen this player before, but according to Charlie Wyatt, Arsenal and Chelsea are both tracking Kaan Kurt. The 18-year-old has played this season for the second-string Borussia Mönchengladbach team in the 4th tier of Germany, but has yet to appear for the club's first team. The right-back would cost about £4 million. So again, if we've done our due diligence and you see him as someone that could potentially contest with Bellerin for that spot or immediately provide some cover, I'm all for it, man. Obviously, I like German youth players because their production line in Germany, they're always very intelligent footballers. You rarely see a German young player or someone that's gone through the academy. They have question marks, but they really lack intelligence and decision making in being calm on the ball. Off topic, but you lot know me, I'm a big Kai Havertz fan. You saw him badding up Bundesliga again. Would love him. We can't afford him. I've been banging on about Guerrero, the left back, since his Lorient days, and he's again yesterday he started for Dortmund doing his thing. Jadon Sancho got an assist as well. Another player I wish we had, but it is what it is. Moving away from that though, and apparently according to Record, I believe a Portuguese paper, I could be wrong, Arsenal have joined the race to sign 17-year-old Sporting winger Jolson. The player is represented by Kaya Jarupkin. So again, it could be us agents helping out their friends. From what I've seen of him, he's very good 1v1. He's very decent in terms of skills. He's got a decent amount of pace on him. I ain't watched him religiously, but I mean, at 17, if we can get a deal, who knows? Why not? If he progresses to the first team, he does his thing. If not, sell, make profit, the world keeps spinning. But I don't know too much on him to offer an extended opinion. Keeping up with wingers, and you know, in all but it's not been officially announced, but that guy George Lewis apparently is going to sign for our under-23 side. He's been speaking. He said, they spotted me playing here at home in Toso during the Itromso Cup this winter. I trained with the A team. It was huge. So again, forgive me for the mispronunciations of the locations, but he said A team. I assume that means he got to fill in the first team and they liked what they saw, and you know, he'll predominantly link up with the under-23s and provide a good option for Steve Bold to utilise. But you know, the world's your oyster. It is what it is. Again, I'm not saying he's going to be like Martinelli. His situation is different, but Martinelli was expected to be 23s. Nobody expected much from Martinelli, at least as a fan, card. We don't know too much about him, and he's batted it up. I'm not saying ability-wise they're the same. I'm not saying he's going to do the same thing. I'm just saying if you work hard, things can happen for you. Look at Saka, come from Halen, got his opportunity, has never played under 23s football since, and that man is still eligible, I believe, to play. Is he still eligible to play FA Youth Cup? I think he's just out of it now, because I think he's turned 18 and that. I could be wrong, 17, 18. I think he's just eligible now, but that just highlights how young he is, people. So it is what it is in that regard. Finally, people, according to Photo Map, normal news, Besiktas have inquired about the possibility of keeping El Nene for another year. Now, again, that's another report we've seen before. Personally, I would prefer him to be moved on permanently, because yeah, he's contracted until 2022. Just move him on and let's get some peas for him and better manage our wages and resources. So why not? But it is what it is. You know, obviously with the COVID thing, we'll probably I don't know what Turkish football is doing, but you'd imagine we'd allow them to finish. We'd allow El Nene to complete such campaign there, people. So we'll have to see what happens in that regard. I forgot to mention as well, but The Athletic also spoke on the fact of Jonathan Davis, who's spoken about he wants to take the next step and go to Bundesliga. More or less the same thing. We've scouted him over the last 2 seasons and we rate his potential as huge. So we'll have to see what happens in that regard. I felt a duty to mention that, not that it's of any relevance, people. And obviously you've all seen Di Marzio has said that Aubameyang is not on Inter Milan's list of targets to replace Martinez, and they're not in talks, and there's been no contact at all, which again at face value is a myth. Apparently, according to Nick Ceccarini, apparently Milik's destination could be England, with Arsenal's the favourites to sign him. As he's got, I mean, just looking at, he's got a year left on his contract, so you can see why that's happening. And again, the same old rumour has popped up in that Arsenal are trying to get Cliver in the Mkhitaryan deal, and also that Mino Raiola is trying to convince Arsenal to extend the contract of Mkhitaryan and then orchestrate a loan with an obligation to buy sort of deal. Which obviously for Arsenal, for him it would be good, because if it goes wrong, you know, he's got his player contracted for another season, for another period at Arsenal and stuff like that, and especially at Mkhitaryan's age, he's got some sort of football and financial security. Would be bad business for Arsenal to extend it. Of course, if we're going to extend it in good faith and they've said they agree to loan with an option to buy, fair play. I personally think we should just sell him at a basement fee and just get him off the book. He's got a year left. He's been an expensive player in terms of wages. He's been one of the most expensive free transfers with Alexis at United as well. Probably the most expensive swap deal in the Premier League. Probably the worst swap deal ever. It's like how can you get man for free and they're both poor? I think Mkhitaryan is better than Ozil, better than Sanchez, but I'm always going to say that, people. So it's the same old, man. There's not really anything new. On that note, though, I'm going to get out of here, man. People, deluded. I'm out.